On the real shit, I gotta keep it so 100. I ain't never like you, cuz. I ain't gonna lie, I ain't never like your bitch. I ain't never like you, You know I ain't like you. In the street, like, we ain't gonna talk about that on here, though.
Is there anybody 50 Cent fears? Ever? Historically in life?
You watch that guy that just has zero fear and say, yeah, we can get him. He tough. We're gonna have a hard time chewing on him, but we're gonna get him.
There is one man in the entertainment industry who has made a career out of knowing things he shouldn't know. A man who has been shot 9 times.
You've been shot how many times? 9 times.
Where were you shot?
Most of them in the legs. I got hit in my hand and I got hit in the face.
Pain-wise, how bad is it to get shot in the face?
Probably.
Is it a 10?
It's not really like as painful as having to visit the dentist repeatedly for root canal.
What is it still in your tongue?
Yeah, it's great for oral sex.
Did you ever find out who did it?
Yeah, I know who did it shortly after.
And they are now where?
The guy who actually shot me is dead.
A man who took down Diddy before the feds did.
Did he do it, right?
Yeah.
I know
he did it.
You've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it. And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually. But I also didn't participate. I also didn't go to the parties.
Yeah.
So a lot of the celebrity culture that you don't hear saying anything is because they participated.
Was there a reason you never went to those parties back in the day?
I'm just not with all that flicky shit. Like all of the stuff that he's doing, I'm not into that type of stuff. I'm just a little more, maybe you could say basic or normal.
A man who turned trolling into an art form and turned information into the most dangerous weapon in hip-hop. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson doesn't speak randomly. He doesn't post randomly. He doesn't comment randomly. Every word, every emoji, every Instagram caption, every deleted post, every interview answer, all of it is calculated. All of it means something. And when 50 Cent decides to speak about someone, really speak, not just troll, you need to pay attention, because history has proven over and over and over again that when 50 talks, the truth follows. And right now, 50 Cent is talking about Pooh Shiesty. Not joking, not trolling, not making memes, talking in interviews, on podcasts, in private conversations that have leaked. And what he's saying about the young man from Memphis is sending shockwaves through every corner of the industry. Because 50 isn't calling Shiesty a hothead. He isn't calling him reckless. He isn't calling him stupid. He's calling him something much more unsettling. He's calling him dangerous. Genuinely, structurally, fundamentally dangerous. The kind of dangerous that doesn't go away with age or money or fame. The kind of dangerous that the system wasn't built to contain.
Well, the most ruthless people that you run into are going to be people that are just focused and not necessarily taking your life into consideration while they're taking theirs. It's like the district attorney's office that she wants the conviction so she can move up. Her career can be good. She'll give you 100 years. And you go, why so much? Like, why you had to do that? And it was like, what? You did it. In her mind, it's her doing her job and her moving up to the next level, and she'll just knock you over. You just become collateral damage, you know? And there's more ruthless people in the business world than in the street.
Pooh Shiesty is the most ungrateful motherfucker I've ever seen in the rap game, bro. And there's a lot of niggas like that, bro. But that nigga Pooh Shiesty, bro, you heard Gucci's line, bro? I put the money in your commissary, bro. Nobody from Shiesty's side ever did that shit for him, bro. Shiesty, if it wasn't for Gucci, bro, he'd still be a street nigga, bro. He'd still be out there hitting little licks. He's a petty car thief, nigga. Nigga would be a petty car thief if it wasn't for fucking Gucci. Come on, bro. It's ungrateful as fuck, bro. It's ungrateful as hell. Yeah, I think.
And when a man who survived 9 bullets tells you someone is dangerous, you don't ask questions, you listen. It started with an interview, a casual, seemingly routine stop at the Breakfast Club to promote his latest project. DJ Envy, Charlemagne, Jess, the usual setup, the usual questions. How's the show going? What's next for G-Unit Film and TV? Are you and Diddy ever gonna stop beefing? Standard stuff. 50 was relaxed, laughing, doing the 50 thing. Then Charlemagne asked a question, almost offhand, almost like an afterthought. He said, what do you make of this whole Pooh Shiesty situation? The escape, the footage, all of it. And 50's entire demeanor changed. Not dramatically, not in a way that most viewers would catch. But if you've watched enough 50 Cent interviews, if you've studied the way this man communicates, you saw it. The smile dropped, not into a frown, into neutral. His eyes went flat. He leaned back slightly and he paused. A full 3-second pause before he answered. And when 50 pauses before he answers, it means he's choosing his words. It means whatever comes next has been filtered through a mind that understands exactly how much weight his words carry. What he said was this, and I'm paraphrasing because the exact quote is longer, but the core of it was, people don't understand what that kid is. They see the music, they see the age, they see the braids and the tattoos, and they think they know what they're looking at. They don't. What they're looking at is something that the industry has never had to deal with before, and they're not equipped. Charlemagne pressed him, what do you mean by that? And 50 said, I've been around dangerous people my entire life. I grew up with dangerous people. I am a dangerous person. But there's a difference between someone who became dangerous because of their environment and someone who was born that way. Environment shapes most people. Some people shape the environment. That kid shapes the environment. The room went quiet, and 50 moved on to the next topic like he hadn't just said the most chilling thing anyone has said about Pooh Shiesty since this entire saga began. To understand why 50's perspective on Shiesty matters, you need to understand 50's relationship with the world Shiesty comes from. 50 Cent and Gucci Mane go way back. Not as close friends, they've had their moments of tension, but as mutual respecters. Two men who came from the streets, survived the streets, and built empires from the wreckage. They understand each other in a way that people who didn't live that life never could. 50 has spoken about Gucci over the years with the respect that he doesn't give many people. He's acknowledged Gucci's business mind. He's acknowledged Gucci's resilience. He's acknowledged the fact that Gucci went to prison, came back, and built something bigger than what he had before, which is exactly what 50 did. And because of that respect, 50 has kept an eye on 1017. He's watched the artists come and go. He's watched the label grow. And he's watched the dynamics between Gucci and his signees with the eye of someone who has been a label boss himself and understands every tension, every frustration, every broken promise that comes with that relationship. 50 has said in previous interviews that he noticed Shiesty early, not because of the music, although he acknowledged the music was good. He noticed Shiesty because of something else, something intangible. He described it once as the thing behind the eyes, that quality that certain people have, a stillness, a readiness, a constant low-level awareness that tells you this person is operating on a frequency that most humans don't have access to. 50 recognized it because he has it himself. He recognized it because the men he grew up with in Southside Jamaica, Queens, the ones who didn't make it out, had it. It's not aggression, it's not anger, it's capacity. The capacity for extreme action without hesitation. And 50 says that when he saw that in Shiesty, he knew, years before any of this happened, that the story was going to end badly. Not because Shiesty was a bad person, but because people with that capacity and that environment and that level of pressure don't get happy endings. The system won't allow it. In a separate interview, a podcast appearance that got significantly less attention than the Breakfast Club sit-down, 50 went deeper, much deeper. The host asked 50 to compare Shiesty to other street-oriented rappers. Where does he rank in terms of authenticity, in terms of really living the life that he raps about? 50's answer was uncomfortable. You could see the host shift in his seat. 50 said, don't compare him to rappers. That's your first mistake. Comparing him to other rappers means you think he's performing. He's not performing. The music is the performance. Everything else is real. And when I say real, I mean the kind of real that doesn't have a ceiling. The host asked what he meant by doesn't have a ceiling. 50 said, most people, even people in the streets, even people who've done real things, they have a line, a boundary, a point where they stop and say, okay, this is too far. That line might be different for everybody. For some people, it's it's family. For some people, it's women. For some people, it's children. But there's a line. Everybody has one. He paused. I've met 3 people in my life who didn't have one. 3 people who, as far as I could tell, had no internal mechanism that said stop. No governor on the engine. And 2 of those 3 people are dead. The 3rd one is locked up. The host asked if Shiesty was one of the 3. 50 smiled. That smile. The one that doesn't reach his eyes. And he said, I said what I said. I'll let you figure out the math. Now, 50 didn't explicitly name Shiesty as one of the 3. He didn't have to. The context of the conversation made it unmistakable. And the implication that Shiesty belongs in a category with people who are either dead or imprisoned because their capacity for extreme action had no boundaries is the most disturbing thing anyone in hip-hop has said about this situation. Because 50 isn't a blogger speculating from his couch. 50 is a man who grew up in one of the most violent neighborhoods in New York City. A man who was a target of multiple assassination attempts. A man who has looked genuine killers in the eye and not flinched. And that man is telling you that Pooh Shiesty scared him. Not in those exact words, but in every word around them. According to sources close to 50's camp, the Breakfast Club interview and the podcast appearance weren't spontaneous. They were the public-facing version of private conversations that 50 had been having for weeks. And the most important of those private conversations was with Gucci Mane himself. Now, neither 50 nor Gucci has confirmed this conversation took place, but multiple people with knowledge of both camps have independently described the same call. And the details are consistent enough across sources that we can piece together what was discussed. The call happened after the CNN footage aired, after the world saw the airport tarmac, the SUV audio, the transponder going dark. 50 reached out to Gucci, not through intermediaries, not through managers, directly, because 50 understood something that most of the industry hadn't grasped yet. This wasn't just Gucci's problem anymore. This was an industry problem. A federal inmate escaping custody, international flight, private military contractors, shell companies, sealed indictments. This had escalated so far beyond a label dispute that the original grievance, Shiesty's unpaid royalties, was almost irrelevant. What mattered now was that a man with no boundaries was loose in the world with resources, motivation, and nothing left to lose. And 50 told Gucci, according to these sources, something that reframed the entire situation. He said, "You're thinking about this like he's coming back for the money. He's not coming back for the money. The money was the excuse. What he wants is for you to feel what he felt, powerless. And he'll do whatever it takes to make that happen." That framing, that Shiesty's motivation isn't financial, but psychological, is what reportedly shifted Gucci's entire approach. Because you can settle a financial dispute, you can write a check, you can renegotiate a contract, you can make the money problem go away, but you can't negotiate with someone whose goal is to make you feel a certain way. That's not business. That's something else entirely, and it requires a completely different response. 50 has been drawing a parallel that most people in hip-hop media haven't picked up on, but it's the key to understanding why he's so vocal about this situation, and it goes back to his own past. In the early 2000s, before 50 Cent was the global superstar, before Get Rich or Die Trying, before the vitamin water deal and the television empire, 50 was in a situation not entirely unlike the one between Shiesty and Gucci. 50 was signed to Columbia Records through a deal with Jam Master Jay.
One night, me and a couple of my boys decided to go to Bentley's, an upscale hip-hop spot in Manhattan. We pulled up in my 400 SE Benz. Not many people had one. As I cruised past the club, out of nowhere, someone ran up on my car and slapped the hood, and my displeasure must have shown on my face. The guy quickly apologized. "I thought you was my man Kenny. He got the same whip." Once my alarm subsided, I took a good look at who was talking to me. It was Jam Master Jay from Run DMC, one of my heroes. I immediately pulled the car over, jumped out, and gave Jay a pound. I told him I was from South Jamaica and had always followed his career. He laughed and apologized again for running up on me, explaining he thought I was NBA star Kenny Anderson, another Queens native. I asked Jay if he was about to go into Bentley's. "No doubt I'm about to run up in this spot and see what's up," he said. I decided to decisively seize the moment. "Yo, we coming with you," I told him. Jay looked at me and then said, "That's what's up, let's go." Just like that, we were past the bouncers and inside Bentley's. We would never have gotten in without him. He literally walked me into the music business. That night, Jay and I formed a friendship, which eventually led to me signing with JMJ Records.
The relationship soured. Business disputes arose. People felt they weren't being compensated fairly. Tensions escalated beyond the boardroom and into the streets. And what followed was one of the most violent periods in New York hip-hop history.
Did Jam Master Jay really work with 50 to kind of help him structure his raps and everything?
Jam Master Jay taught 50 structure.
Okay, were you there when that was happening?
And you gotta think, no, I used to go to the studio. I went to the studio a couple of times, but I was selling drugs and I was busy. And Fifth, at that time he had a Benz. So that's what really caught on to, the art of seduction. If a motherfucker already got money already, listen, a motherfucker only do favors for you when you don't need a favor. When I'm fucked up and I need a favor, motherfuckers ain't gonna give me no favor. But when I don't need a favor, a motherfucker's gonna do a favor for me. So Fifth already had money. He had a Mercedes-Benz 17, 16. He had a 4Runner, he had a Mercedes-Benz. He had cars already. He was doing everything a rapper do, had chains, had all that already. Running around with thousands. So Jay fucked with him because he seen him at the club in a big-ass Benz. Know what I'm saying? And rest in peace to Jay, man.
50 doesn't talk about this period in detail often, but when he does, he speaks with the weight of someone who understands exactly how business disputes in hip-hop can metastasize into something life-threatening. He's been on both sides, the artist who felt cheated and the boss who had artists under him feeling the same way. And what 50 sees in the Shiesty situation is a pattern he recognizes, a pattern that he knows from personal experience. Only ends one of three ways: prison, death, or one side completely and utterly destroying the other. 50 said in an interview that was barely covered, "I see myself in parts of this. I see my old self in Shiesty. The hunger, the anger, the willingness to burn everything down if you feel disrespected. And I see my current self in Gucci, the businessman who has too much to lose to respond the way the streets want him to respond. The difference is, I grew out of being the first guy. I'm not sure Shiesty can." That last sentence, "I'm not sure Shiesty can," coming from 50 Cent, a man who literally grew out of being a street figure and became a mogul. That's not a diss, that's a diagnosis. 50 is saying that the transformation he made from dangerous to disciplined is a transformation he doesn't believe Shiesty is capable of making. Not because Shiesty isn't smart enough, because the thing inside Shiesty that makes him dangerous is too deeply wired to be overridden by money or success or time. And now we get to the moment that broke the internet, because of course we do. Because with 50 Cent, it always comes back to Instagram. 3 days after the Breakfast Club interview, 50 posted an image on Instagram. The image was a split screen. On the left side, a photo of Pooh Shiesty from his early career. Young, hungry, eyes locked on the camera with that flat, emotionless stare that became his signature. On the right side, and this is the part that made people lose their minds, a photo of a wolf. Not a cartoon wolf, not a cute wolf, a real wolf, photographed mid-stalk, low to the ground, eyes locked forward, every muscle coiled. The kind of photo that makes you feel the danger through the screen. The caption was 2 words, same energy. The post was up for exactly 19 minutes before it was deleted. 19 minutes, long enough for the entire internet to screenshot it, short enough to maintain deniability. Classic 50. But the message was clear. 50 wasn't comparing Shiesty to a wolf as an insult. He was comparing him to a wolf as a warning. A wolf doesn't attack out of anger. A wolf doesn't attack out of emotion. A wolf attacks because that's what it's built to do. It's in the wiring. It's in the DNA. You can put a wolf in a cage and it's still a wolf. You can feed a wolf every day and it's still a wolf. The environment doesn't change what it is. And 50 was telling the world, that's what you're dealing with. Not a rapper who got in over his head. Not a young man who made bad decisions. A predator, operating on instinct, doing what his nature compels him to do. Whether you find that assessment fair or not depends on your perspective. But coming from 50, a man who has looked into the eyes of predators his entire life, it carries a weight that no blogger or commentator could ever match. 50 hasn't just been talking about Shiesty as an individual. He's been using Shiesty as a case study to deliver a warning to the entire music industry. And that warning is this: you created this. In multiple interviews interviews over the past few weeks, 50 has been hammering a single point. The music industry signs young men from violent environments, profits from their trauma, exploits their street credibility, and then acts shocked when those same young men bring the streets into the boardroom. 50 said on a recent podcast, "You can't sign a man because he's dangerous, market him because he's dangerous, sell his music because he's dangerous, put dangerous in every headline and every press release and every marketing campaign, and then be surprised when he's dangerous to you. That's not a surprise, that's a consequence." And he's right. The entire marketing of Pooh Shiesty, from the name to the music to the image to the social media presence, was built around the idea that this man was authentic, that the street life he rapped about was real, that the violence in his lyrics wasn't fiction. 1017 leaned into that. The blogs leaned into that. The streaming platforms leaned into that. Everybody profited from the idea that Pooh Shiesty was the real thing. And now that he's proven just how real he is, escaping federal custody, fleeing the country, allegedly threatening Gucci's wife, operating like a man with nothing to lose, the same people who celebrated his authenticity are terrified of it. 50 sees the hypocrisy, and he's not letting anyone forget it. He said, "The industry doesn't want real. The industry wants the illusion of real. They want a man who looks dangerous in a music video, but acts like an accountant in a meeting. They want the aesthetic without the consequence. And when they get the consequence, when the real walks through the door and does real things, they want to call the police, the same police whose existence they rap about opposing." That critique isn't just about Shiesty. It's about every label that has signed a street artist, profited from their story, and then discarded them when the story became inconvenient. It's about a system that commodifies trauma and then criminalizes the traumatized. And 50, who has lived on both sides of that equation, is uniquely positioned to make that critique, because he's not speaking from theory, he's speaking from the scar tissue. Here's the part of this story that keeps me up at night, because there's something 50 isn't saying, something he's holding back, and the fact that he's holding it back is almost more alarming than anything he has said. Throughout every interview, every podcast, every conversation about this situation, 50 has consistently alluded to having information that he hasn't shared publicly. Not in a bragging way, not in a "I know something you don't know" childish way, in a careful, deliberate way that suggests the information is sensitive enough that sharing it would have consequences. On The Breakfast Club, when Charlemagne pushed him for more details, 50 said, "There are things about this situation that aren't mine to say. Not yet. The timing isn't right." When the podcast host asked him if he knew where Shiesty was, 50 didn't say no. He said, "I know things that would make this conversation very different, but I also know that saying those things right now will put people in positions they don't want to be in, including me. 50 Cent, a man who has been shot 9 times, who has publicly feuded with some of the most powerful people in entertainment, who has literally laughed in the face of death threats, is being careful. That alone tells you the stakes. So what does 50 know? Theories range from the mundane to the explosive. Some people believe 50 knows Shiesty's location, that through his network, which spans multiple countries and multiple industries, 50 has been told where Shiesty is hiding, and he's choosing not to share that information because doing so would make him a cooperating witness in a federal investigation, which is a line that 50 Cent will never cross. Others believe 50 has information about who financed the escape, that the shell companies, the private contractors, the charter jet, all of it traces back to an individual or organization that 50 is aware of, and that individual or organization is powerful enough that even 50 is treading carefully. And then there's the theory that 50 knows something about what's coming next. Not what has already happened, what is about to happen. That the next phase of this saga, whatever it is, involves players and stakes that the public hasn't even begun to imagine. And 50 is positioning himself accordingly, saying enough to be relevant, not so much that he becomes a target. That's vintage 50 Cent, always in the conversation, never in the crosshairs. And now we need to talk about the elephant in the room, because there's a reason 50 Cent is suddenly so vocal about Pooh Shiesty, and that reason might have less to do with concern for the culture culture and more to do with content. 50 Cent is the most prolific producer in true crime entertainment right now. His production company, G-Unit Film and Television, has produced documentaries on Diddy, on hip-hop culture, on criminal enterprises. He turned the Diddy saga into a multi-part Netflix series that broke streaming records.
The docu-series, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, #1 on Netflix, ahead of Stranger Things. I mean, it is more successful than I imagined people even thought it would be. What's your response to how well it's doing?
But they did characterize it as a hit piece in the very beginning, is because they didn't get a chance to watch it, you know, when they were saying that. And then after they see it, you see everyone's changed their mind, and it becomes the #1 dog.
The man doesn't just observe stories, he monetizes them. In the Pooh Shiesty saga, this is the greatest story in modern hip-hop. A label dispute that escalated into a confrontation that escalated into a threat against a woman, a threat that escalated into a federal escape, an escape that escalated into an international manhunt, with FBI involvement, CNN coverage, leaked footage from multiple sources, and a cast of characters that include some of the biggest names in rap. If you're 50 Cent, if you're a producer with a track record of turning real-life hip-hop drama into premium content, this story is a goldmine. This story is a 10-part docuseries. This story is the project that follows the Diddy documentary and cements G-Unit Film as the dominant force in hip-hop true crime. And 50 knows it. Of course he knows it. Every interview he's given right now is serving two purposes: positioning himself as an authority on the story and building public interest in a potential project. The man is marketing and truth-telling at the same time. And he's so good at it that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Now it's confirmed that 50's team has already been in conversations with streaming platforms about a Pooh Shiesty project. No deal has been announced. No official production has begun. But the conversations are happening. The interest is there. And 50 is laying the groundwork with every single public appearance. So when 50 tells you that Pooh Shiesty is the most dangerous man in hip-hop, is that genuine concern from a man who recognizes a familiar pattern? Or is it the opening narration of a documentary that hasn't been announced yet? The answer, knowing 50, is probably both. Because 50 Cent has never seen a contradiction between doing the right thing and making money from it. He warned the world about Diddy and produced the documentary. He told the truth and got paid for it.
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Not all. Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal, so you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things. It would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
What's your intent with the series, with the film?
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, you know, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, you know, maybe more questions are asked than answers given. And I think that it was important to both of us to preserve the culture of hip hop, because I think all too often when projects like this are made, our culture is diminished, you know. This is a story that I think a lot of people want to kind of rain down on the culture of hip hop as a whole, and they forget that these are the actions and the allegations of one man. Sean Combs has a lot of things that he's going to continue to have to work out, but he also contributed to the culture, and that was also important. So I hope that the takeaway is that sometimes things are, you know, it's more than meets the eye. And there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of nuance to stories, and I feel like we tried to put all those layers in as much as we could.
And he's about to do the exact same thing with Pooh Shiesty. I want to end this video with the last thing 50 said publicly about Pooh Shiesty. Not on a podcast, not on The Breakfast Club, on Instagram Live, late at night, barely 2,000 people watching. The kind of moment that happens when 50 has something to say and doesn't care about the audience size. Someone in the comments asked, "Do you think they'll catch Shiesty?" 50 read the comment out loud, nodded slowly, and said, "They'll catch him. They always catch them. The question isn't whether they catch him. The question is what condition he's in when they do. Because a man like that, a man with nothing left to lose and nowhere left to go, that man doesn't have a surrender in him. I've known men like that my whole life. They don't put their hands up. They don't come quietly. They go out the way they live. And the people around them when it happens become collateral." He paused, looked into the camera. "I hope I'm wrong. I genuinely hope I'm wrong. Because he's still somebody's son. He's still somebody's father. And regardless of what he's done, there's a mother in Memphis who wants her boy to come home alive. I hope he does." Then he ended the live. No jokes, no trolling, no promotional plug. Just a man who has survived everything, speaking about a young man who might not survive what's coming. And that right there, that rare, unguarded moment from a man who almost never lets his guard down, tells you everything you need to know about how serious the situation is. 50 Cent doesn't hope for people. 50 Cent doesn't express vulnerability on camera. 50 Cent doesn't show concern for people he barely knows. Unless he believes the ending is going to be tragic. Unless he's seen this movie before, in his neighborhood, in his life, in the eyes of men who burn too bright and too hot and too fast. Unless he knows with the certainty of someone who has lived it, that the story of Pooh Shiesty is heading somewhere that nobody wants it to go. And all any of us can do is watch and hope that 50 is wrong, even though he never is. 50 Cent has been right about everything. Diddy, the industry, the gatekeepers, the darkness behind the curtain. Every single time the world laughed at him, time proved him right. And now he's telling us that Pooh Shiesty is the most dangerous person the music industry has ever produced. Not the most talented, not the most successful, the most dangerous. A man without a line, a wolf in a world of dogs, a force that the system wasn't built to contain and isn't equipped to stop. Whether that assessment leads to a documentary deal or a genuine tragedy or both remains to be seen. But when 50 Cent speaks, the smart money listens. The question is no longer how dangerous is Pooh Shiesty. 50 answered that. The question is, what happens when a dangerous man with nothing to lose decides that coming home isn't an option? And the answer to that question might be the scariest thing of all. Like, subscribe, share, and pray for Memphis.